All right, guys, we're the change-up pitch, right? We just heard how great Florida is, and after this, we're going to hear how the Fed broke the American economy and everybody's So our job is to kind of lift it up, right? The idea here is to talk about something other than real estate. We're going to talk about life and the correlation in our lives between athletics and business. And maybe put a finer point on its relevance today for us, how it shapes our view of excellence, our view of work, and what it takes. Because you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There is no in between. No presentations today, we're just going to tell stories. Hack said we're going to have a kneecap to kneecap discussion, which given he was in the NFL kind of scared me. All right, so let me introduce our panelists. Julie Holmes is the president of JK2 Scenic, a leading architectural millwork specialty construction company in Orlando. With Julie overseeing day-to-day operations and strategic growth, JK2 Scenic has seen incredible success, with revenues up over 1,000% from when she began. The company has also been named to the Orlando Business Journal's list of fastest growing companies in Central Florida and has received 14 Eagle Awards for excellence in constructions from its leading trade entity, the Central Florida chapter of the Association of Builders and Contractors. Julie is passionate about marrying elaborate creative projects with exact excellent construction. Julie was also named a 2019 Woman Who Means Business by the Orlando Business Journal and serves on the board for the Central Florida chapter of the Associated Builders and Contractors. Julie is a collegiate athlete on the greatest swimming and diving program in the universe.
I was on the rebuilding years, but go Gators.
Sorry, Brandon. Julie's a two-time academic all-SEC student athlete and a three-time medal winner in swimming and diving. Welcome, Julie. Lawrence Hatch. Hatch currently serves as the Central Florida Market President and Private Banking Group Manager for the Central Florida region at First Horizon Bank. His team assists individuals and corporate entities alike with defining their goals, objectives, and risk measures, along with analyzing current and future financial objectives. Hatch is a member of the Florida Gators Alumni Association. He is chairman of the board for the Assistance Fund, a nonprofit organization that provides underinsured individuals with financial assistance for chronic and life-threatening diseases. Hatch is also a youth football coach for hundreds of kids across his time as a coach and serves as a mentor to at-risk youth. Lawrence is a Gator and holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Florida, where he played cornerback. He was drafted by the New England Patriots in 1993 and played in the NFL until 1998. Well, that's it. My name is Paul Ellis. I'm a 5'9", 13-mall state linebacker from the Lyman Greyhounds. So clearly similar athletic careers. Hatch played in the NFL, all SEC. I'm not sure why I'm up here. Actually, my role here is to teach Tim Becker the difference between appetizers and dinner, which is a very, very hard and long journey. Currently, I serve as CEO of Foundry Commercial. Today, Foundry has grown to 12 offices across the southeast of Texas, with over 2,000 associates serving the commercial real estate industry, including a senior living division and a development investment platform that has about $4.6 billion in joint ventures with some of the best institutional investors in the world. All right, here's the setup. Athletics was one of the main drivers in our formative years. I think I read somewhere where top 5 influences in anyone's life growing up are teachers and coaches. This was often the place where we learned about life, discipline, effort, and those lessons were applied within a competitive landscape. After each game, meet, or match, we had clear and direct feedback on our performance, and we either won or lost. Julie, thinking about athletic careers in swimming, you train hundreds of hours to shave less than a second off the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Hatch in football, you're constantly training, constantly getting stronger, faster, smarter, all from 12 to 18 games a year. Many are often decided in the last minutes of the last quarter. Huge amounts of preparation in athletics. We live in a binary, in athletics, we live in a binary world. Each game or meet, in some senses, are stopped out. But yet the success in that moment is the result of hundreds of hours of preparation, years of preparation, practice, training, film review, and reps. So here's the first question. I actually heard this statement from Bill Lawrence-Barnard when he was the athletic director of Florida. You are either getting better or you are getting worse. Do you believe this? And what does it look like in your life today? Pat, you get to go first.
Great question. Short answer is yes, right. I personally think you need to be intentional about each and everything you do. If you're not making an effort to be better, to do better, to surround yourself with proper individuals that are going to help you be in a better place than you were yesterday, I just simply think you're being stagnant. A phrase that I've used a couple of times, and I was actually having this conversation with the boss probably a couple of months ago, is I use the mentality of being almost like the juggernaut, right? It's a body in motion stays in motion. And you continue to press forward, you continue to move on. There's simply no such thing as retreat. I mean, I was a poor black kid that grew up in Southern California in projects in California. And there was never a way that we could literally stop and hopefully have somebody else kind of pick up the pieces for us. So you always have to continue to press on. And I think that's just really the key. Continue to be active, be an active participant, not only in what you do, but everything, and everybody else.
Yeah, and I agree. And, you know, with the pandemic, I think it made everyone think a little differently about things. And you had the ability to switch and careers, you know, what you were doing. Some people had to pivot. And if you didn't take that opportunity to pivot at the right time, I mean, you were behind the game. And so there's an exact example of not growing. And I think, you know, in the construction industry, you know, I can, as a business owner with 50 plus employees coming off a double revenue year, when you're manufacturing yourself and you have people and workforce to finish, basically with the last Universal Hotel Dockside that never opened until months later after the pandemic. But when the Disney and Universal shut on March 16th, 2020, and you're holding people to then start going on the Star Wars Hotel, and, you know, everything shuts down, what do you do? And, you know, one of the things looking for pivoting and are you getting better or worse and changes, on the 17th, so the next day we let go of workforce, which was the only staff reduction I did, and then within 2 weeks of that, every single part of the business that I was subbing out to other people, I brought into myself. And so we learned, we bought machinery to work with a new product called Kydex, because everything in space has to be plastic. We pivoted, we did things. And so, you know, I think if you sit there and you're stagnant, I mean, the world's going to pass you by. And so, you know, taking a look at, and especially in athletics, but I mean, I think that the courage to take coaches, strategic, you know, direction, and they gave you ideas to get better. And if you didn't listen to them, you know, where are you today? So I think those are really important things to act quick and obviously look around you. And you know, I didn't know back then if I was making the right decision. Now I know I did. So.
All right, so some mindset, right? How do you, when you take that mindset and you bring it into the business, right? Because we're all in a competitive market, right? Construction industry employs enormously, particularly in your niche. Banking industry has always been an enormous competitive industry. Personally, what do you do to make sure you're staying at the top? You get to go first.
I get to go first. Well, you know, staying at the top of my game, having a workforce and getting my team to trust me and to be able to perform. You know, I recently, through some advisors, these are not all my ideas, but, you know, came up with the term, we're corporate athletes. You know, I grew up competitively swimming, you know, 5 to 6 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you know, became an athlete. But athletes, they train, they perform, and they recover. And so, in part of the workplace, if you think about it, you know, you're training, you're learning a skill set, you're applying that to what you do in the business, you perform, you have some transactions, you know, maybe some deals that you close, and then you recover, and you've got to learn from them, and that's when you take a break and you look back and say, what did I do right or wrong? And, you know, a lot of times, I've been seeing it, you know, you get the new people that come in, and so they want to make a difference, they want to make a name for themselves, but a lot of times they pivot. And so as an athlete, you know, if you have a practice and a way to coach and train, after you just performed, you don't go start new and do something else, right? But I think if you look around in your business, there's a lot of people that drive you to maybe think of something new or chase that shiny object, but there is a real big lesson in train, perform, recover, and then tweak. And if you can incrementally get a little better each time or learn from it, then you're progressively staying at the top of the game and able to pivot. But, in my opinion, that's what I'm trying to kind of coach now, is that we're corporate athletes. You got this fundamental base and the hard work ethic when you were young, but how do you apply that into the business world?
Hatch, how do you stay at the top of your game?
Honestly, I just think you need to show up in the present. I think right now we live in a society, and I've coached and trained, as Paul mentioned, thousands and thousands of kids over the course of 15 or 16 years. Some of them have made it to the pinnacle of what their sport is, and some of them, it was really intentional for me just to make sure they can get into school and ultimately change what their family tree looks like. But when you look at staying on top of the game, I think it's really important that sports, just like life, it's not a participation trophy, right? I look at it in a very simplistic term. It's either you win or you lose. And sometimes it's how you can get to that shiny carrot at the end of the rainbow. The one thing that I've tried to do personally is try to be very intentional in not only my words, my actions, surround myself with the right people. And I've come across lots of people in life, and some are good for you, some aren't. And once you determine who's not good for you or good with you, you just got to tell them to go down sand. You just push them and you move on. You surround yourself with those people that are really going to help you propel. And that way everybody's moving towards the same potential common goal. And hopefully that's something for a better shiny light at the end of the rainbow. Sorry about that. But it's one thing that's really helped me is really trying to be a much better listener, right? I'll give you a story. Do I got a second?
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know who in here loves The Walking Dead or loved The Walking Dead. Early, not the late ones, but the early seasons. So I would sit down and I'd be watching on my TV, and I've got all my stuff going on, and my wife loved it to death. But she would sit down next to me and try to have a conversation, literally, during the show. We all know how that goes. So she's hatch, and I'm just steady looking away. And then she would be like, "Do you hear me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I hear you. But if you want me to listen, I don't want to be an active listener. Let's wait for it. Or I'll catch you on the other end of this at 10 o'clock. Right?" It's funny to me now, it wasn't funny when I first had it. It kind of gave me the side. But I try to use that in my same respect with my individuals at work. Is really make sure that I can carve out for everybody in my entire team, and even if it's for 15 minutes a week, it's really just to sit down and have that heart-to-heart recap conversation. So that way they can share any ongoing issues, any concerns, and that way they understand that I'm in it with it. I'm just not somebody that's raining down orders and directives. We're truly in this game together, right? So people may say who they feel is the #1 quarterback. I'm a Gator. I'm going to say my guy Shane Matthews. Some may say Werfel. Some may say Tebow. You pick and choose whoever you want to. But I've never seen one of those individuals in practice or in a game do it by themselves, right? They've never hiked it, blocked, thrown, run down the field, caught the ball, and scored all by themselves. It takes 10 other individuals that are on the field moving towards the same common goal. And I think that's one thing that's important to me. And I think that's what I utilize and try to utilize on a daily basis.
And speaking of listening, it's funny, as we're preparing for this, as you're young and getting coached as a kid, you're very impressionable, but we listened. If they told us to jump off a bridge, we probably would do it. And as I'm trying to think about the business world, you say you want to sit and be present and listen to your team and employees. But one of the things is it's harder for people to take advice in the business world than it was as a coach. And if we're reflective and kind of look at that, there's a true value to say, we probably had larger success when we were a kid, and granted we were impressionable at that time, but we took that as constructive criticism, and it wasn't, a direct reflection on, just our confidence or something else. And so, I don't know.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. I've been called everything but a child of God. But you know what, it's good. The one thing about sports, which kind of differentiates just the business and real world life, is in sports you get what I call an absolute immediate feedback, literally in the moment. So with sports, whichever sport's your sport, right? So you can have your highest highs and your lowest lows. And you can literally have those from one play to the next. You can be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then you can be, oh my gosh, why did we give this guy a scholarship? Or why are we paying them to be out on the field? But to me, I think that's really near and dear to me. It's just the competition of going out there. And my goal is to try to beat you up literally every single play. I'm gonna try to take your heart, your soul, your spirit. I don't necessarily do that in business world. But then again, it goes back to competition, right? I think I've been competitive my whole life, track, baseball, basketball, football. And if I was asked to run through a brick wall, I'd say how fast and how many times. It's just simply something you're ingrained to do every single day. And I kind of take that exact same approach, and we move that from the athletic field and you move it into the field of whatever your expertise is. And some are there now and some will ultimately be there. But one thing that I would say is continue to press on. Once again, surround yourself with people that are going to be a positive influence in your life. And just never give up. There's no such thing as retreat. Yeah, you may have to go around and everybody hits that proverbial fork in the road where you have to go left, you have to go right. But you have to make a decision, but continue to press on, continue to move forward. To me, I think that's one of the most vital things that's really helped me out in my career, the people that I've surrounded myself with.
Maybe throw your purple on that. How do you, in your mind, how do you transition that competitive mindset from athletics, which is head-to-head, my job is to be, right, to business, right? I mean, there's an aspect of that, but there's also there can be some negative aspects if we carry that kind of mindset over. How do you transition that from a business standpoint?
I hate to lose. And I take the same mindset, the same philosophy, because it's been something that I've been doing since I was 5 or 6 years old. And it's worked well for me, and it's gotten me to this place. But it's just not what you do on the field, it's how you're able to transition and translate that athletic ability into something more and something greater, right? And I think that's really important. And I think pouring into individuals is really the key. So, I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, and I guess with that being said, with you can't do it on your own. One of the books I've been reading lately is Patrick Lencioni, The Ideal Team Player, and it says, and this could be in athletics, and I guess when you're a team, and mine was an individual sport, so I got a few seconds to shine, but I think with a team player, you want to be humble, hungry, and smart, right? And so you got to be humble, which means no ego. You want to win. There's a certain way to win. There's a gracious way, not be arrogant. And one of the quotes was, "Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less." And it's really about others. And then hungry. Okay, so hungry. We're all self-motivated. I mean, athletes are self-motivated. We're looking for more. You don't have to be managed as much because we're always these overachievers. And then when I heard smart, I was like, smart. Okay, I have a lot of people smarter than me, but it's really emotional intelligence, your interpersonal awareness. And so, smart people have great judgment, they have great intuition, and so I think when you translate that competitiveness into being a leader, because that's what we're part of a team, and we're being led by someone, the quarterback, whatever else, but when you become a leader in your own business, and with your own team, there's different traits that you have to use, and being humble, hungry, and smart, help you hire the right people. They help you put great teams together, and I think part of some of that is as a leader being vulnerable, and that's something I have to work on. Is I'm not always going to be right. I'm going to be competitive. You want to win.
We're just talking about.
No, I am not so good. I have learned this the hard way on my own, but I think that's and a lot of it is when you have an ego or you think you're the best, a lot of times it's looking in that mirror, and that's the hard thing to do, is looking at yourself and seeing how you could quit. That's a topic. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? How do you stay at the top of your game? And so we came to work every day, we were working on something, but a lot of it starts with ourselves, and then what you can do for others. And so I think, in business, we all want to see others be successful.
All right, so let's take that theme a little bit, right? Physical training is everything in the life, right? How important is physical, mental, spiritual health to you today? What does it look like, and how critical is it to your personal success?
Personally, I think it's important. I mean, even to this day, I'm not ashamed to say it, I'm 51, I'll be 52 in a couple months. And I'm not as big as I used to be, I'm not as strong, I'm not as fast. But I think it's important. And one more thing, for someone that's had 16 surgeries at this point in my life, understanding the part about just the physical wellness, I think is vitally important. Simply because one, I want to still continue to be in the best shape of my life. But once again, it's about being up and it's about being active. And it's really kind of following the same approach and mentality and methodology that I used to have when I was an athlete. You're in training. You get up in the morning, that you have a routine. There's just certain things that are non-negotiables that you just need to get up and do every single day. So I kind of take that same approach from kind of the physical well-being and you transition that into the mental well-being and work well-being. And it jumpstarts your day. It activates you. You're already energized and ready to go. So that way, when you do step into the office, you're ready to be able to sit down and kind of transfer that same energy to your entire team to make sure that we're being the most collaborative, providing the best and most succinct advice to clients, prospects, but then really making sure that we can energize and take care of those that we see each and every day on a daily basis. I know we see this time and time again, but we tend to spend more of our time at work than we do at our home. And I think it's really important. No place is Pollyanna. There's no rainbows and sprinkles and sunshine everywhere you go, but you have to understand that the workplace environment should be hopefully cohesive and to the point where people can work in an environment where you can collaborate, you can have disagreements, I can coach you, critical feedback, right? But you understand that you can pivot and still come together collectively as a team. So just the mentality part of it, the physicality part of it, I think is really the key. And I think once again, it kind of ties back to that and being present.
I agree, and I'm really glad that we're talking about mental health because I don't know about you, but I probably got beat up a lot. We were strong back then, and I don't know if people have gotten more weak or, it's definitely sensitivity. You can't even say Gatorade anymore, right? But, and I think part of that mental health, though, is just really realizing that it does affect a lot of people, and you've got to take, clarity breaks. When you guys are running hard, that's part of this corporate athlete, train, perform, recover, right? Part of this recovery is these clarity breaks when you can take time to reset, to get yourself in the best shape, because when you're trying to lead and have others follow you, you need to be in your best place. And so a lot of times that takes time to rest, that's vacations, I think when you're really busy, you don't make a lot of time for that. And then, kind of relating that to the business world, if you can take that, whether it's once a week or every other week, 10 to 15 minutes in your day where you just sit there and reflect and kind of take time to plan, and then, obviously look at the things that you've been doing, and when you're recovering, it's like, what have you done right, what have you done wrong, what do you need to work on, all those things that help you every day get better. And I think, they're huge, but I'm glad we're talking about it now. So
It's important.
really important.
Yeah, it's critical, right? We're also setting an example for people around us with that investment. So more is often learned in our losses than our wins, right? I just read a book on you person, Nick Saban, but the context of this part of the story of this question was we've all seen Saban on the sidelines. Fiery, yelling, headsets broken, and the natural assumption was after a loss at Alabama that the practice that week would be terrible. There'd be a lot more yelling and screaming, there'd be a lot more intensity. Alabama doesn't lose that much. And what they found is it's actually the opposite. That their focus during a loss is so significant because they've got to get value out of that loss, right? Because there's not that many of them. So it's actually a lot calmer. It's actually a lot more focused on the game tape, the mistakes that were made, but not in a negative way. It's like, okay, these are the things that we're going to have to correct in order to win. So game tape review is powerful. What's one of your biggest failures or losses that impacted you, and how did it change you?
There's All right, so I've had a lot of loss in my life, right? Personally, professionally, whether it's business and or sports, but once again, kind of that juggernaut mentality. I would say my biggest loss was probably more failure than anything else myself. Yeah, I got drafted in '93, but within my first year, I had 2 reconstructive shoulder surgeries in New England. And the doctor that performed the shoulder surgeries, Dr. Zarens, said, I've seen all of these surgeries, but I've never seen them in one player at the same time. He'll never play. 21 years old. I thought I was there. I thought I was on the mountain, right? And all of a sudden, I get brought back down. I busted my tail. I worked to get myself back, but at least to the point where I think I can go out there and compete. I'm living up in North Attleboro, and I'm walking down the stairs, and I slip. Brace myself, all the bolts and screws broke, shot balls. Saw the doctor the very next day, had shoulder surgery all over. So at this point, it's mid-season. I think I'm done. I fought my way back, and over the course of the next 3.5 years, I bounced around. I was at Atlanta, got a quick stint up in Canada, went to Dallas, and had 2 more shoulder surgeries at that point. So it's 1998, getting ready to get kicked off in the training camp, and the doctors came in and said, what you just had done, I don't know, 13 months before, you've got to go in there and do it all over again. And at this point, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do, and had a young kid, now my oldest son, but then my youngest son, my wife and child were in Atlanta, and not being able to pick him didn't fall within any of my grand plans. So I made the call back to UF, spoke to Tim. I got me back in school. I was a semester short of my coursework, my internship, so I did that. But to be honest with you, it was the most devastating news that I had. It was the most frightening because I just simply didn't know what the next steps were. I didn't know what I was going to do next because everything that up to that point, I was living the American dream, lived something that less than 1/2 of the people on the planet get to do. And that's done. That's over and done. But what I was able to do is I understood that, yes, athletics was a catalyst to be able to get me to a college or University of Florida, go Gators, right? Best place on God's green earth. That's just my opinion. Hopefully everybody's in here, so don't say anything, John. That's my brother from another mother. And but what I did is I made sure I continued to stay focused. Went back to school, got my degree, and I just continued to press and move forward in my career, just continued to move on, and found those people that would help me be enough to be along the way. And those that wouldn't, you just kind of push them by the wayside. And 25 years later, almost 25 years later, I'm in the position that I'm in right now. Not saying that I'm greater than anything, but it's just that juggernaut mentality, just continue to press, continue to move forward, and understanding that there is no ultimate stop in life. There is no, I look at life as a series of plateaus, right? So you get to one plateau, maybe there's going to be a rest, but you need to continue to press and move forward into what that next plateau is going to be. And it could be work-related. It might not be. It could be volunteerism, right? It could be something else, but continue to stress and strive and move forward. So I'll wrap it up. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. But I took what was my greatest loss, and I had to pivot and say, there's something bigger that's here. I'm here on this earth for something. It may not be football, it may be something else. And at the end of the day, it wasn't football. It was what I do in work and my volunteerism. So it all worked out for me. So I just ended.
Yeah, we sometimes talk about like many times in life, business, the worst thing can become the best thing.
It can be,
right? In some sense, if those things don't happen, you don't make the transition, right? You just described Julie, biggest failure or loss.
And leading, I think, into my business career, because that's just where my head is at when you're running a business. Mine was last year, and so, I talked about some really early decisions that I made when COVID happened, but one of the things that, and I look back and there's a progression of lessons, so I think the big point is lessons learned and what you come out of it. But in 2020, I had 3 large jobs. I go from the Star Wars Hotel to the Epcot Creation in the center of Epcot. I did the Orlando Magic Training Facility, and then we were on the new international terminal doing a premium lounge. And so I made a decision in 2020 to take this Orlando Magic job. And as we're negotiating the contract, and this is 2020, you kind of need some work. There wasn't a lot of things going on. And so I signed a contract before escalation in labor hit that said no escalation in labor in December of 2020. And the job opened in August of 2022. And so, you know, that was really tough as a business to be able to survive and go through that. But, you know, one of the things is, you know, I talk about how happy I am to be in 2023 because what I wanted from last year was if I had to learn all my mistakes in business, you know, I learned, you know, as a subcontractor, and, you know, everyone in this room, you know, the construction industry, you have to have construction to build your projects. And then you have to have subs like me to come in and do the finishing trade to get done. And I think, you know, part of the things I've learned to say no, I've learned to negotiate hard, you know, but a lot of that, to your point about stepping stones, is, you know, I had to do a lot of things right. You know, I had to be successful on these other jobs and do a type of work on the Star Wars Hotel that no one else locally had done. The only other person that was self-performing as Kydex were failed, and I bought their equipment. The other companies were in Canada, California, and Pennsylvania, and we didn't even know how to do it before we started. So, you know, I think some of the losses turned into lessons learned, and now I have the power because these same people are calling and saying, hey, do you want to work on this job? And I go, I don't know. We're going to have to go through a big checklist of what's on your list about this job before I decide to take it. But, you know, I think that's the biggest thing in sports and business is you've got to be vulnerable, you've got to be able to learn, and then you've got to be able to reflect. Because, you know, I'm saying I'm not making those mistakes again. You know, I think the problem is if you're not learning from, you know, if I make that mistake again, like, I don't think I should be in business, but, you know, I'm learning from them. And so I think, you know, now I'm ready for the year ahead, a great year ahead, but last year was really tough, and it's just those little things that some of them aren't planned for. I mean, who knew, right? And I think I made all the right decisions. I don't think I would change it, but the end result is sometimes you don't see it, but can you get through it, can you learn from it, and then how do you move on?
All right, one story. We're all coaches today. A story about how a coach changed you. It could be a good story, or it could be a bad story. And how does it impact that experience? How does it impact how you coach people today?
All right, so can I do two? All right, so I've got a story for everything. So I'm gonna use one from my old ball coach. I think we all know who that is, right? Coach Spurrier. And then the other one will be Coach Marcel's my right here. So Spurrier, he was an absolute fanatic, and if you didn't play on offense, he said very few words to you. But you did hear his voice when he was upset and disappointed with what you didn't do or if you didn't meet his personal level of expectation. So after every loss, and we didn't lose a lot in the early 90s, thank goodness, because I would have probably switched from football over to track because we ran so much. But if we didn't perform well on Saturday, and I'll just say a loss, we would meet him down at the field, 5 o'clock, dressed and ready to go. 5:15, we hit the stadiums, right? We understand how big that stadium is. Every single step, 2 rotations, that equal, right? So after a loss, you understand there was just a certain level of expectation that you didn't meet. And there was a punishment. But then again, it was Sunday. On Monday, we flipped the page, we looked forward to whoever our next opponent is. But the one thing that rang true, we had a homecoming game in 1991, we played Northern Illinois. And I don't know what it is about that coach. He upset Coach Spurrier to the highest level. This is the first time I've ever heard him say he ever wanted to beat a team by 50 points and he didn't want them to score. Okay, we didn't score 50 and they scored 10 points. I think we won 41-10, but it's homecoming. We all go inside and we're just having a ball. We're thinking about where we're going, what party, this, that, and the third. Spurrier comes in and he starts kicking over trash cans and throwing Gatorade bottles all over the place. And he called us literally everything but a child of God. I won't say exactly what he said, just because we're in a sanitized location at this point. And he was like, I'll see you guys at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're just like, you just ruined my homecoming. what are we doing? So of course, we all went back to the dorm, we did our thing, licked our wounds. So after the fact, we asked him, why did we run? We just won. It wasn't the fact that we won the game, but it was how we won the game, right? We didn't meet his level of expectation of what product we were to produce for him. There were more mistakes than should have been made against his mind's eye, an inferior opponent. And that really holds true to me today. It's what do they say? It's not really always about winning, but it's how you win. And that's absolutely true in that case. So I kind of take that exact same approach as, yes, you can win a deal, but did you do it the right way, right? Maybe the competition was inferior, or maybe you just kind of lucked into it. So having those post-call debriefs after each and every opportunity, I think is really vitally important to make sure that you're maximizing the most out of your team and the entire collaborative session. So that was one. Number two, okay, Parcells, I'm having an unbelievable OTAs and training camp, and it was almost like Big Tuna was my shadow. It's a pretty big field out there. No matter where I was, he was always there. I made a great play, he'd always say something. I knock a ball down, he's like, you should have picked it off. If you would have did this, you should have did that. And it was just week after week after week. And one day I was in my emotions, kind of feeling myself. I'm like, Coach, I always bust my chops every single day. And he was like, well, you know what, Ash? I see something in you that you probably don't see in yourself. So I'm going to coach you up, kind of the same thing we do in the professional world, right? And I'm going to provide you instant and immediate critique and feedback for each and everything you do. Because one, I think you can be the best thing since sliced bread. He didn't say that, but I'm kind of paraphrasing. But that was really, really important to me because he took that much time and effort in me to coach me up. And then he says, the one thing I want you to understand is be wary of the day I have nothing to say. Right? So whether you're doing good or whether you're doing bad, if nobody is ready to step in and critique and help you and provide some sort of critical advice in the moment, be very careful and weird because that basically says that you're giving up. And that's something, once again, I've kind of taken back and I've provided that to all the little kids and I've coached and trained, but also to my team as well. And it's not about beating you down. It's not about saying that you're not doing a great job. It's how can we be better? How can we be better? How can we do better? So those are my two stories and I'm sticking to it.
But, yeah, I think I'm going to shield myself, and I think, some of this my story is maybe my teammate, and I think what I've learned from coaching is there's several ways to coach and mentor, right? And then I think with emotional intelligence and the ability to read and to learn about different personality types, that there's different ways to coach people that make them more successful. And so, my story is my swim coach, my teammate was graduating. She was a year ahead of me, and she had one more year to stay at Florida to swim just on her own with us to then start training for Olympic trials. And so she went to the coach, someone she appreciated, who was pretty tough on us. But she asked, do I have the skill set and the talent? Do you think I'm good enough to make trials? And what he said to her, which is a lesson learned, is he's like, no, you're not good enough. You'd probably be better off flipping hamburgers at McDonald's than you are to stay in the pool and swim this race. And so what was really interesting is, she actually took that to heart and was like, I guess I'm not good enough. I can't do it. And, she quit swimming because, it's a pinnacle of your career. You either get injured, for swimming, it's really whether you make Olympic trials or not, right? We've got some great swimmers coming back. Katie Ledecky's at Florida right now training for the Olympics. So, but what came out of that is, obviously it affected her, and it was the way that he approached it. And years later, so obviously the mental block that she had was, she sees our swim coach, she goes up and asks, remember, this is still bothering me. And I guess maybe at that time she wasn't confident enough, or whatever it was. And she said, did I have it in me? Could I have made it to trials? And he's like, absolutely. But I told you what I told you because I thought it would motivate you. And that was the absolute wrong way. And some people get motivated by saying that you're not good enough, and then people want to prove you wrong. But that was not the right way to motivate her. And here she is, 20 years later, and that's still one of the things that she remembers. So, I think it's very important to be aware of your team, be aware how they react, because the things that you say aren't impressionable. I think, as we're older, we're hopefully more confident, we have more of our own emotional intelligence, but when you're 21 and graduating and you can either go and get a job or stay one more year out of Florida and train for the Olympics, you wouldn't want to do that, but when your coach sits there and tells you you're not good enough and you actually listen to it, I think that's definitely obviously heartbreaking. But I think that's one of the things I've learned is that to be very aware of how you approach things, and everyone is different. That's still something I'm not exactly great at, but I've been trying every day to be a little better, because listening is really important with that emotional intelligence and feedback.
It's probably legend by now, probably been modified. The best story that was Don Shula. What the story goes is that during preseason camp, ran offensive install, and third string offensive lineman falls asleep in the meeting. And in the meeting, Shula explodes and cuts him right there in front of her.
I've seen that.
And so, but in the press conference, they were asking about that. Somebody asked, well, Coach, what if Dan Marino had fallen asleep during the meeting? He said, well, I would have told everybody around me to be quiet because Dan is asleep. And coach people a little bit different.
Yeah. Sure.
All right, Nikki gave us some questions that she's been getting from the students as they kind of prepare for their careers for some advice. So students here are under pressure, right? Often they are in a combined program. There are some student athletes in the program. In some sense, they have two objectives: do well in school and get hired. What's your advice? Both take time. What's your advice on how they should prioritize?
I'll add a third to that one: network. So do well in school, yes. Network, yes. Get hired, yes. So do all three, right? But once again, you guys and gals, you're young. You have unlimited energy. Get up early, stay up late, and do what you need to do. At the end of the day, everything that you learn in the classroom isn't always necessarily translatable or transferable to what you're going to be doing, right? Yeah, of course, if it's mathematics and economics, if you're a nuclear scientist or a physicist, absolutely, please do a great, be great in school and do everything. But at the end of the day, it's really you need to put yourself out there. You need to be present, but also you need to be on, right? So when you begin that networking process. And the networking process, honestly, can translate into the being hired, because you're around more professionals, you're around more individuals like you that have their own companies, that if they may not have a position or a spot for you, they know somebody somewhere that it may be the perfect fit for you. But if you sat in your dorm, you played video games all day or slept all day, right? You just simply didn't make that network connection, which means you're probably going to be missing out. Somebody else is going to be taking that opportunity. So once again, I always say do well in school, but the personal part of it, I think, is really the most important thing, and it's about being active and being an active participant in your growth in the next phases of your life. So that first phase is kind of ground floor, you get your feet wet. And then you continue to learn and you elevate. And at some point in time, you make transition, move to a new organization. I know, I guess, in this younger generation, not saying that you're going to work someplace for 30 or 40 years, but hopping around probably every 18 months may not be the best thing for you. That's just my own personal opinion. But yeah, I say do all three well, and do them every day, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add to that is to make sure you're exposed, because when you're in high school, what are you trying to do? You're very well-rounded. You're in athletics, you might be in music, you volunteer, and then you get good grades. I think in college, you kind of lose some of that diversity that you use to get into college. So when you're about to go into the workforce. So I think, one of the things that's important is if you think we're only exposed to careers and opportunities of what's in front of us. So that's why networking is really important. And then, be vulnerable, and it's really ask questions and get to know, because when you ask people, everyone loves to talk about themselves and their career. So, as a student or someone trying to get out there and get hired, I think that's the easiest question to ask is like, how did you get to where you are today? What are some lessons learned? And be willing to listen. And if you can take that feedback and learn, I think that's a great opportunity. So you basically need to be very well-rounded, in my opinion.
All right, one of the things that the program here does very well is it creates access for the students with the board members and senior people with significant experience in the industry. And yet students have very little experience in the industry. And they tend to take a posture, the question was, what advice do we have for them, right? The posture is either fake it until you make it, right? And they often enter into the conversation with the mindset that they're supposed to know everything about the industry, right? What's our advice? What's your advice?
Maybe go back to humble, hungry, and smart, right? And that's really, relating it to, I would never say fake it till you make it, because I would hire someone any day that is eager, willing to learn, is out there aggressive, asking questions, than the know-it-all over here. And I mean, because that's number one, you're not humble, right? And so I think and we don't know everything. So I think the best part is to really be aware and, make sure that, you're humble, hungry, and smart.
I guess for me, the key thing is once again, you need to be very intentional about what you do. You can't make a connection with everyone out there, but sometimes it just takes one person, right? So as you're kind of going through who the available members are for you to make some sort of contact, maybe find one or two and see if you can not really latch onto them, but just have a general conversation and let them know where you are and see if they have the opportunity to mentor. Because most individuals, when they've got to I guess, my kids, for the most part, I've got a 26-year-old that just moved to California. He's almost off the payroll. And I've got an 18-year-old that's going to be transitioning over to UCF, and he'll be playing for them next year. But he's still in town, so he'll still be on the payroll. For at least 4 days.
Laundry and food, right?
Always, yeah, man. He eats a lot. But find somebody that will sit down with you and mentor you. And I think that's really important. And it's really not about work, but it's really about life lessons, how to position yourself, really to help yourself define what's important to you. You have to really be true to yourself. Try to be as authentic as you can possibly be, because if you're trying to set yourself up to match somebody else's ideals and criteria, you're just simply not going to be the same. Just understand who you are, who you want to be, and then really see if they can help you navigate those landmines that you're going to be dealing with as a kid that's coming right out of school, because you're going to come up against roadblocks every single day, right? You're going to see things and experience things that you literally never seen in your life. And you're going to sometimes have these things come at you every day, every couple of days. And having somebody that you can lean on, and it may be a family member, maybe it's not a family member. Sometimes it's best to kind of stay out of that family space. That way you can be open and honest, and you can have some real clear dialogue going back and forth. And they're going to pour into you if you pour into them, and I think that's really important. So, maybe find 1 or 2 mentors out there. You probably don't need more than that. And then just sit down and have very candid conversations, heart to heart. And they'll steer you in the right direction. So that's my advice.
Awesome. We are right on the button on time, so I want to thank our guest here for your preparation.